Today we'll continue looking at the World Cup 2014 application. This is the third video in our series, and today we're going to take a look at how we access the individual player information. So what you've seen so far is the ability to populate this list control with the team information. We're going to go ahead and then bring up the team details and the team results. This has been covered in video number 1 and number 2, also how to integrate this in with Google Maps. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at how we handle accessing all the player information. So we get a list of all the players and we put a label up here indicating what team we're looking at. And then, of course, when you tap on a row, we're going to bring up the details about the player and all of the player statistics in another list control down here. We're also going to make a request of Flickr of publicly available photos, and we're going to get a count of those photos and update this button right here. I'm going to cover the Flickr integration in my 4th video. So we're going to start out looking at the team details. And what we're going to do is when you click on this button that will appear in the panel header, we're going to want to get a list of all the players, switch to the panel card that has that list, and then when you tap on a player, we're going to bring up the detail view about that player. So let's take a look at what this button does. It's click event. What we're going to do is set the value of a variable we call underbar country. And we're going to use this to set essentially a label in the panel header. And then we go ahead and call a function called getPlayers, and we pass in the country. Let's go look at that JavaScript. So the first thing we do, this is again a pattern that we repeat throughout this application. We're going to go ahead and put up a spinner, let the user, well, something's going on. We're going to make our RESTful call to the KimonoLabs API, and we're going to ask for the players, and we're going to ask for a specific nationality that we're passing in via the country. Once we go ahead and make the request, we're going to go ahead and parse the JSON that is returned into a JavaScript object called underbar data. We're going to go ahead and get an object that points to the players list, and then we go ahead and populate the list with the data, scroll to item 0, bring it to the top of the list, and then we go ahead and set a panel card active that's going to display that list. Let's go take a look at that. So our players panel card is going to have a button to bring us back to the team panel card. It's also got a static text item that is labeled team name, that's our ID, and that we've populated with the selected team when you click on the row. And then we can see a list in here, and this list has got all of our players. Let's take a look at what this looks like. So here we see our players list, in this case for Belgium, and you can see we've got a disclosure indicator here that indicates that when I tap on that row, we're going to bring up detail information about the player, and we're going to bring up statistics about the player. So here we've got a panel layout with a panel card with a separate panel card that has another list control specifically for statistical information on this player. So let's go back and take a look at, again, the definition of the list control so we can see how we did that. So the players list, first thing we want to take a look at is how did we define the static data template. So in this case, it's very straightforward JSON. We're bringing up just first name, last name, and so on, just about the given player. And if we take a look at the list layout, we've got a HTML template with, and we're using Alpha's templating language with placeholders to indicate first name, last name. We're bringing up an image. we're going to show goals, assists, and so on in this list. But when you tap on a row here, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and switch to the detail panel card. So you'll notice in our list events here that we're going to actually calculate a bunch of stuff before we make that transition, because I wanted to convert for example, the birth date to month, day, year format here in the United States. That's a typical way of looking at a date. So I'm doing that right in here. And then I also wanted to convert the weight to pounds, again, typical in the US. The World Cup API is returning weight in kilograms, so I do the conversion to pounds. Height also is coming back in centimeters, and I am converting that also to feet and inches. So this is nice. So you can see that we can consume this JSON, then modify what it is, and then present that information in this case, we're going to be showing a detail view, but we'll be bringing in the weight in pounds and the height in feet and inches. And then what we do in this case is go out and get the Flickr images that might be available for this particular player. We are using a detail view, and in the detail view, once again, we've mapped the list control column. So this is part of the JSON that's coming back, and we're mapping that to a particular control on the UX component that we're going to use for the detail view. The detail view, of course, is going to be in a different panel. So we go to the player details here, and once again we see a panel layout very, very similar to what we saw with the teams and the team details. So we've got again, in the panel card, we've got a number of fields that are just essentially containers for the JSON data that I've hidden. And some, you'll notice some I just made up. For example, height in feet and inches. This doesn't come back. This is not in the JSON data. So I've just created that as a placeholder for my calculation. And then I'm going to go ahead and use that in this freeform container because, again, I wanted to use templating. So I didn't want just columns of information. I wanted a template. And again, I'm using the placeholders to display first name, last name. Here you can see height in feet and inches and weight and in pounds and so on. So this makes it very simple to display any type of information that you might want. And also, obviously, I've modified that information, converting the height in centimeters to height in feet and inches and the weight in kilograms to weight in pounds. So that's a nice thing to know about. Okay, and one other part of this panel layout is player stats. So the player stats, let's take a look at that list control. And again, we've got the static information, and this is going to be on a per player basis, and what season, what league they played in, and so on. Very simple, straightforward JSON here. And this is populated through the get player stats function that's called when you click on a row containing the player. Let's go take a look at the get player stats function. So that's right down here. And here again, you can see a similar pattern. We're putting up a spinner. We're making our RESTful API call to the KimonoLabs API for a particular stats for a given player ID, which we're passing in. And on load, we parse the JSON that comes back, convert that to a JavaScript object. We get the control for the player stats here, and then we populate the player stats with the data, scroll to the top, and then we're ready to go with the player stats list. So what we've covered here is bringing up all the different players for a given nation. What happens when you click on that row, bringing up all the details about the player, and again, bringing up all his statistics, player stats in another list control that's embedded within this panel layout. In our next video, we'll take a look at talking to the Flickr API to get the latest public images and updating this count within the Photos button.